Hello to everyone, this is Vishal and hope all are doing good. And today we on the same category of the sessions of the unit test and learn how we can use the Espresso intent test as intents are important in our apps, both explicit and implicit. But today we learn how we can use the explicit intents on our testing and how we can use the intended and intending, what's the difference between them, and how we can use the activity test rule with that or intent test rule with that. So a lot of stuffs today we have to learn on the practical, but I will categorize it this intents on the two videos. So first we have to learn this kind of test and then we go for the second intent on that. So today we have to learn the first test of the intents. How we can learn, it's a very simple. And one more thing that many users want that there be the sequence of the videos. Yeah, I already make the playlist for all, just like if you go with the unit testing, so there will be the video series on the unit testing. If you go with the MVVM, there's many videos on the playlist of the MVVM, then the sequence wise, and the dagger and lot of things be there, RX Java, so many tutorials be there with the series in the playlist, so you can learn from that. So those who are new here, so please first watch the videos on this playlist, that means the previous videos, so that is in the sequence you have to learn the unit testing. And today we learned a lot of things in intent. So just to start these things practical, as we know that the Espresso intents and extensions to Espresso which enables validations, the stubbing of intents sent out by the applications under test. So this kind of theories you can check from the Google, from everywhere. But that means if you go with the intents, there we can use the Mockito, Robo Electrics and a lot of them. But today we have to learn by simple Espresso how we can use both intent and intending, and also we have to work with our intent test rule or activity test rules. So both we have to apply on that. So here you need these runner rules, Espresso intents, that is important, and Espresso core. So these be built on your Android project. Okay, so now we have to go for the practical session on Android Studio. Okay, so let us start in Android Studio. So here we have this runner rules, Espresso, Entrance, Core, these all these Android test implementations that we needed for that. And this is our second activity in which we have to receive something, and this is our first activity in which we have a simple button, uh, that is button 1 and button 2, and this is the text view. But I will show you why we use this text view on the last, but you just check it that we have two buttons in which on a first click we have to send the intents on that. So here we have intent I, intent main activity to second activity start activity. We are sending nothing at this time, we just simply check the intent be working. So this I'm doing, this is not a test, this is the simple checking of the app. Yeah, so this intent in working perfect, how we can do it by the test, and these all be the UI, so we do not nothing, this be done by the Espresso itself. So this is the go to and go to the test, and on the test we have to create the new test, and this is the main activity test, and say okay. Yeah, so it always be on the Android test folder, as I have done many times. And okay, so here I'm not using first the activity rule. So first I'm using at, okay, so first showing to you without rule what happened on that. So if you go with the test, and I'm using the public void test intent, if you give the name, any name to that test, and this is a test. Okay, so here we have to do something, that is called your test intent. So whenever you work with the test intent, we needed to check on the click. So this is your on view, and on view we need with id, and with the id we have to check that idr dot id dot, I need the first button, so that is called send data, and say alt enter for the view. And here we have to perform the click. So that means we need to check on this click what happened with the test. And the first thing is that is called your intended. That means we have to check that a simple test it's work or not. So that is called your intended. So that is your has component, and that has components. We need a second activity dot class dot get name, alt enter, alt enter. So this is a simple test whenever you work with your activity. So on the click button we need to check that. So we need a intended. So there's a difference between intended and intending. I will describe you. The first simple test, we have to check that where activity B on the second activity approaches or not. So for the test we just run that and see what happened with this. So for the test I will do nothing, because at this time the old screen be here, it just be running, and once it's done it showed you the test behavior below. So let's see that. On our last tutorials we have done a lot of on the recycler view, and one more tutorial I will describe you recycler view also with the Mockito. So check that its test be running or not here. It say the test failed. Why? Because of people doing these mistakes, and this kind of mistakes generally, it say that no activity is found. That means if you have no any test rule, so that means this is the first fault you are doing during the espresso test. So that's an important, you have to apply the test rule. So here I am doing the intent, so at rule I will show you both activity test rule and intent test rule also. Okay, so whenever you test your intent, so that means you need a public intent test rule, and rule is on the main activity, that is your intent test rule. And whenever you work with this, so that means that your new intent test rule, and here you have to pass your main activity dot class. Okay, so now we have to test that is that be fine or not. So this is the way you have to work. Okay, so meanwhile I'm talking about the last recycler view activity. So that means more approaches I will describe you on that. Okay, in my coming tutorials we will do all kind of testings one by one. So here you can see that click, it's done auto, everything be there by the espresso test. Okay, so for that I already described you that if you want to go with the testing, you can use the thread sleep also, that means I will describe you how you can do, and your animations off on that on your emulators, so you can check your test perfectly. Okay, on my first test. So here this test is pass. So uh, whenever you work with the test you need a rule, so that is the most important. Okay, and here whenever you check that whether the mtb where we have intent, that's be on the other side, that means on the other activity it will be there or not. So that means here we can use intended. So intended is used as a simple approach to second activity. So here you can say that has a component second activity dot class dot get name be there or not, where we send our intent. Very simple. Now we have a other uh, test, that is if you want to get a response something from that activity, or how we can do a very simple test with your activity test rules. Also, if you want to work with the intent with activity test rules, how we can do. So we'll see that here. So I think this is a simple rule you have to follow. Okay, now we have to go over the second rule. Okay, now I'll show to you that if you work with the same things, if you want that for the activity result, how you can do this. So you have a other way, that is called your activity test rule, and you want to work with your main activity. And here you can say that activity test rule, that is equals to new activity test rule, and this is your main activity dot class. Okay, so that's very simple. And here this is your activity test rule. Just simply say we have a intent I is equals to new intent, and for the intent we can say that activity test rule dot launch activity I. So this is the other approach, you can learn that with the test intent. So check it whether it be pass or fail. So this is the approach, other approach. If you're using the intended, that you go with that, and if you want to use this activity test rule, so you can follow this. So that's the simple. So on the send click, it showed you that the test pass, it's perfect. Okay, and then now um, whenever you want some response back, so what you did, that means if you want something with your activity test result, so that's the difference between intended and intending. Intended is just to check the whether the other activity be open or not, or approaches by intent or not. While whenever you work with the intending, so that means you're using the intending method, which is similar to the Mockito dot when we'll describe you when we'll discuss about the Mockito on the intent test. So you can provide a stub response for the activity that are launched with the start activity for result. So that whenever you work with the start activity for result, and we need these things, so we need a intending. Okay, so we'll describe you more examples of intending, but today you see how we can use this kind of intending whenever you put some extra, or you want to check that things be perfectly working or not. Okay, so here the approach be like, maybe if you want to send something be here, and say intent I is equals to same new intent, and you can say that we have put extra values be there, and I want something be name, and values be Vishal. Okay, and also I have to change these things on our main activity. Here also I want to put extra, that is the name, and the value be Vishal. Just check it. And here whenever you put this data, put extra, and want to check intending behavior, so if we need a instrumentation, okay, dot activity result, that is the most important. Let's call it instrumentation activity result, and this is your result, and we have to work with the result now. And this is your new instrumentation dot activity result, and I want to check that activity uh, dot result. Okay, okay, and this is your comma I, that means intent. So it works by the result. So here I want to be intending, and for the intending what we need to package, and Alt enter. And to package means we have to check the second activity dot get sorry dot class dot get name. So that means we have to pass this test for the second one, and here you can say that response with result. I want something from, I desire something from this second one. Okay, so that means I want to check that it move back or not. So first we check this thing, this simple intent be working or not. Okay, let's see, intending be here. So this is a very simple. So very many times we can work like that with the intending. You just today learn that what is the simple differences. Then we go more deep on our other sessions on that. You just check it what be the use of these things. So test is pass, but the difference we have to check. So that means I want the back, but sometimes this error I have seen many times. I will describe you. um, I want to click something be here. That means I want that it back to the first screen and say with ID, and my second button name is send data 1, and that be perform, and that perform via click. So if this test be pass, I want that my main activity be say text view set visibility visible. So there we have our text view. At this time I have changed this visibility as an a gone, and this is a gone case. I want to check that as a per visible. So let's see what happened with this test or not. So this is our run, and it's showing to us whether it is pass or a fail. So this is the intending whenever I want to get back the things. So that is our most important error, and many times I have checked that on the Stack Overflow also. No views in hierarchy found matching. This happen with intending mostly. So that means it show as in a null behavior because of it never approach the first activity at this time, but I want set back result on our first activity. So for this what happen, we need to make a espresso dot press back. Okay, and if your any key be working, so you can close soft keyboard if they are. So I just showed you, but otherwise it is a press back that is the most important. And I also want this performance with a thread, and that thread I want to sleep for some time. Okay, uh, and say alt enter. It's saying yeah, add exceptions to method signature, yes. So this is a thread slip. So on this, on the click it back and get the result that it be or not. So a lot of stuffs video like this we can learn on our intent test rule. Okay, you just practice on this. So see what happened with this. It click, get back on the first screen again, and get it's working. Okay, but if you want to check again your next data also, so you can put the slip after the back. Okay, and you can run this test be test intent be here. So that means we have a thread dot sleep, you can check that it's worked perfectly with the your delay times, and also it back the things yes it's working or not, because of it automatically visible my text view. So yeah, it's a workings because of on the get it click the get button also automatically, and then show our text view be here. So that means this is called whenever you want some activity result back on your faster screen, that's working or not. Okay, so this is called intending. And one more thing, you can work with this intending. If you don't have intending, you can work with the activity test rule also. So I will show you how you can do this approach. Okay, and at this time I'm not using this test. I am making a I want to hide these things be here. Okay, so now let us start the activity test rule again. Okay, so for this activity test rule, you need to make it as true and false. That means the launch activity make it false, because of sometimes we need a get back activity result and it showing be a nothing or a null value. So you can use that false. That means your launch be false here. And for this, first we have to create a method. That is an important. I want to make it a private static uh, intent. So you can use any kind of intent with this, and this is your create intent for this activity. And for this create, I want to give that intent name, and the same thing I want to be the perform click here. And on this perform click we need a context here, and that context is your context, and that is your instrumentation. Not instrumentation. Here at this time we need a instrumentation registry. That is an important. We have to use that get instrumentation and dot get your target context. So that means you have to register that which category or which activity you want to be the target on that on a particular context. So here we have a intent, and for the intent I, that is your new intent, and here we can check that your context be and comma your main activity dot class. Okay, so that means you have to use this context be as an intent. Okay, so here I am using the I dot put extra, and I want to be the name, and here the value be the name, that is passes from the string name, and here you can return your intent. Okay, sorry I. Okay, so now we have to go for the test, and for the test what we need it to check that it's be working or not. So that means you're at test, and you can check that public void show intent test. And for this what we need it uh, activity test rule dot again that launch activity, and you can check that create intent, and I want to give this name be Vishal. Okay, and when you work with this performance, that means we need to back result on that. So for this what we have done the on view and your thread sleep. So at this time I don't go with the press back. Okay, because of we used a false p there, and you can check that alt and so that is your thread sleep. You can check that perfectly it works or not. Okay, so let's see what happened with this activity test rule. So we have many other also approaches. You can work with that activity on the rules. So here you can check that send and get back the things, and you can check that it's working. So it auto close. So this is a very simple testing you can do with your activity test rule and with your intended and with your intending. So this is the difference whenever you work with that. That means if you want activity result back, so you can work like that. And if you want a simple intent test rule, you can use the intended and intending, but on that case you need to back the things using the espresso press back. Okay, so I think these things you can understand easily because of it's a simple practice things. And in other tutorials will describe you more deep on the intents and other testings. As I will get a time, will make a video for you. Thank you so much for your love and appreciation. Thanks a lot.